I think one of the positive things about being a lawyer is that clients actually treat you as consultants.
Welcome to Hustleshare, the podcast that features the daily grinds of unique hustlers around the world to show not our differences, but that our hustles are very much alike. Now here's your host, Ronster Pyong.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Hustleshare podcast. My name is Ronster and I am your host. Okay, this episode is quite different because for the past couple of episodes, we've been featuring entrepreneurs and techie people. In this episode, though, it's very different because we're going to be talking to a lawyer. It's a big deviation from the first trend, like what I said. First, because when I mentioned in the episode 0 that, of course, we're going to be talking to people that are very close to me at first. But this one is unique because we're going to be talking, though it's still going to be business in nature, we're going to be talking about things in a very different realm, which is law and legalities and whatnot. And our guest today is named Attorney Josef Acuña. He's a very good friend of mine as well. Joseph is a capital markets lawyer. So what is that? That's what you're going to find out in this episode. And other than that, we're also going to be talking about the hustle that it takes for someone who wants to be a lawyer, all the things that he had to go through to get past law school, to pass the bar exams, and how he got to this point in life already that he's already helping out companies raise millions and millions of pesos to raise capital for their business. So stick around and we're going to have a very fun show only here on the Hustleshare podcast, and we're going to begin now. Welcome to the third episode of Hustleshare. Today's going to be a very special day because, actually no, it's supposed to be fourth. My bad. I think it's fourth episode. I'm crazy. Anyway, fourth episode of Hustleshare. Today's going to be very special because we have someone who's actually helped me out a lot. And specifically, he's not out there, but a lot of people know him. His name is Josef Acuña. Joseph, welcome to the show.
Hi, hello.
Oh, he has very high energy. Great energy today, Attorney Josef.
Yeah.
So Joseph here is what's the specific a lawyer? What type of lawyer?
I'm a capital markets lawyer.
Capital markets lawyer. Now let's just go straight into defining what is a capital markets lawyer.
Well, it's basically a corporate law practice, but my practice concentrates more on fundraising for clients, whether it's via debt or via equity. So we deal a lot with startups and even those who wants to publicly raise fund.
Wow.
So, yeah. Okay,
so startups and this episode is going to revolve around that because just a little bit of a tidbit on how I met you, right? In my first, a lifetime ago, which is like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, I met Attorney Josef through my first startup in guestlist.ph. That's the name. It wasn't incorporated yet. I've been doing that for a good 3 to 4 years now. I was broke as shit. And then finally, long story short, Kickstart Ventures invested in us. And as a part of the deal in that accelerator, Kickstart helped us to incorporate. And the lawyer that was assigned to us was you. So long story short, he helped me.
You were actually required, I think, to set up because it was very informal during the time.
True. It was the wild west of startups before. And that was at 2013?
Probably 2013, 2014, yeah.
Yeah. No, 2013. I remember 2013. 6 years ago, dude. That was felt like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. So Joseph literally helped me understand what the actual fuck I'm actually getting into. Because for us, as a business owner or as a hustler by default, sometimes we only focus on the grind, but we don't know that somehow, some way, you need to educate ourselves in what we're getting into, because we need to get better in what we do. So okay, Joseph, before we start delving into the stuff, I've known you for a while now. I've never asked you about your story. We always talk about random shit, basketball, whatever, and whatnot. But how did you get into wanting to become a lawyer?
To be honest, I don't really remember. I think it's too much TV. When I was younger, I have vague memories of watching. There were two shows when I was younger. It was The Practice and Ally McBeal.
Okay.
Of course, I'd tell you about The Practice because, you know.
Ally McBeal is... Why are you watching Ally McBeal as a girl?
No, but I grew up in the province. We had we had free TV only. We didn't have cable.
Yeah.
So I was stuck with whatever's on TV, which was Channel 9. I think it was on Channel 9.
RPN 9.
RPN 9.
There
So
you go.
I was stuck with that. And I don't know, after graduating high school, legal management sounded good, and then after legal management, there was, that was the practical path to take up law.
Okay, when you were in college, you took up college in UST, correct?
UST, yes.
And then you took up college. I guess that was a straight path already. When you took up legal management, is it given that most of the time you were going to end up being a lawyer?
Not really. Most of my classmates actually ended up doing something else, but during that time, I think you experienced this when you were enrolling or applying in UST. You just look at the name of the course, and then if it sounds good, it's good. So when
Mine is totally different. Okay, I was forced to take whatever because that's the only one that
you pass. Yeah. No, but when I took up legal management, it was more of, I thought it was a good pre-law.
Okay.
And then subsequently, I found out that it was actually for people who wants to have a legal background while not ending up taking up law.
So you still have that good base, but you still have a lot of freedom what you want to do after.
Yes. Supposedly that's... I think when they developed legal management, they wanted for, young businessmen to have a basic background of the law. That was the whole premise of it. But somehow, because it gets a bit misleading when you read it, legal management. So you end up taking up law afterwards, or you end up taking it with the intention of taking up law after that. So.
Wow, that is great. And let's call a spade, okay? Law is not for chumps. These are not for people. It takes a lot of... It's like medicine. Probably, it just takes a lot of memorization. And you eat books for a living, right? So after legma... Is that say it right? Is that
legma.
Wow,
yeah.
Shit. I sound legit here. After legma, how did you decide, all right, I'm going to do law?
Actually, when I was in 4th year college already, I started practicing reading.
Reading? Like litigation reading?
No, like just reading. Because you know how it is in college, you spend most of your time just sleeping and drinking.
I don't know about you, but I was...
So I wasn't really studying that much during the time. Okay. So when I was in 4th year, I realized I wanted to take up law. So I started practicing reading. So I started buying random books just to read. So for me, that was just it. I practiced reading. The memorization stuff, I didn't really do that. Yeah, I'm not really that, I'm not really that smart to memorize a bunch of things. So I think it was, I always thought of myself as an overachiever.
There you go.
That way, yeah. So I can't even say I overworked. I just worked enough,
Would you say it's just general curiosity as well?
Not really. Okay, when I graduated college, most of my friends actually started working. I didn't want to work yet, and I didn't want to be a bum. So law school was actually a convenient way to be a bum.
Was there a gap when you...
No, I took up law straight out of college, yes.
Wow.
So it was a good, it's a legitimate way to be a bum. You're still getting allowance and you have a purpose, while my friends were already working. So it was a good way for me to postpone growing up.
Because I've seen also people where, after college, they go into corporate or they do something else before they realize that, hey, I want to do law and whatnot. So you went straight up.
I went straight up. And I can't say it was intentional. It was just because I didn't know I didn't have anything else to do at that time.
Got it.
Some people, because of their, because of the lack of opportunity, they end up working first and just going back afterwards. But I mean, most of the people I talk to, they tell me that once you start working, it's hard to go back because, once you start earning, it's
correct, and it becomes a habit, and that's all they call it the rat race, right? And once you start getting into the rat race, it's tough to go out.
Yeah.
Like personally, me, what triggered me to be an entrepreneur was I hated going to work. I'm not going to work because I just felt like I can be a master of who I want. I knew that was not normal. The longest tenure I've had being an employee was 11 months. Working for someone else.
Oh, but that's quite long also.
Yeah, I know, but I've seen people work 17 years or 18 years, spend the whole fucking life and working in a company. So I knew there was something, and I knew that it's not because I'm a bad employee. It's just that I wanted to be in control of my own destiny, whether I fail or not. So, okay, going back to your story as a lawyer, was it a straight line drive? Was it law is not easy? We hear the horror stories of fraternities, terror lawyers. Was it easy for you? Did you just did you transfer to school somehow?
Yes. Okay. When I actually started law, I didn't really know if I wanted to become a lawyer yet during the time. As I said, I just wanted to have something to do while figuring it out. And then what I told myself during the time was, as long as I keep passing, I'll push through. So
you're alive.
Yeah. So I keep passing somehow, kept surviving. And then I think I was in third year already during the time. I reached third year. In law school we have they call it they call it QPI.
QPI. What does QPI
I don't
stand
really know what it means, but it's an average, your average grade. QPI.
Cute Papa India.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bad.
So we have a QPI requirement, and during my third year, I wasn't able to hit that requirement.
It's like a GPA.
It's like a GPA, yeah. So it's like a quota course of some sort. So I wasn't able to reach the quota, so I had to leave. And then during the time, I was already in my fourth year.
Yeah, that was a tough.
So it didn't make sense for me to stop because I was already...
You're right there. Just one more push. Yeah.
And I wasn't really failing my classes. It's just that
you didn't make the cut.
I just didn't make the cut. So it's... I think that was one of the motivations during the time was because I wasn't really failing. It was that I wasn't as impressive as I should have been.
Got it.
So...
that was the chip on your shoulder.
During the time, not really. It was more of... It was just a waste that my mom already spent X amount of years with me, and so after that, I was supposed to stop because remember, as I said earlier, my gauge was as long as I keep passing, I'll pursue. But during the time, it was already in my fourth year. I didn't want to push through because I was, that was my limit, But then my mom talked to me, a couple of relatives talked to me to just finish it. I mean, so I was already
would it be fair to say that there was a lot of doubt and it's like, I don't want to do this anymore? Did that creep in, or were you really determined to finish the race?
During the time, actually, during the time, it's not that I doubted myself. It wasn't even part of the equation during the time. When I was in third year college, I think I told this to you before. We used to have a chain of banks in the province.
Chain of banks.
We used to have 7-8 banks in the province, and then during that time, everything closed.
Oh, fuck.
In a span of 4 or 5 months.
Is this the financial crisis?
During the financial crisis.
Wow.
So during the time, it was actually taking up law was the least of my concern. I was actually concerned about the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was going back and forth to the province to help them with it's called bank run. With the bank run. So that's what I was doing. And when I got kicked out of UST, I just wanted to go back to the province and try to fix it.
Yeah.
And that's when my mom talked to me, my relatives talked to me that it's basically them telling me that my life shouldn't be affected by what's happening there.
Right.
And just push through.
Yeah.
So, not that I doubted myself during the time. It was more of I had more important things to do.
Got it.
That's why I decided.
But you never stopped. Eventually, you finished law school.
Yes.
And then, of course, we know that that's not the finish line. The finish line is a whole nother monster in itself.
Yes,
which is the bar exams.
Yes.
Did you once you walk us through this? Because I've never. I mean, you're the first lawyer that I ever knew like this close. What type of hustle does a law student have to go through?
Okay,
to pass the bar exam.
Talking about hustle during the time, because remember the whole family business closed.
Yeah.
So during the time, I actually had to get a bunch of gigs to pay for law school, to pay for review and things like that.
Okay.
So during the time, I was actually doing side gigs as a photographer. I was shooting for magazines. This was around 2010, I think, 2011.
Nice.
I was doing this while I was in fourth year law school up to the time I graduated. And I always tell this to people. During the first week of my bar exams, like 4 or 5 days before, I actually had a shoot.
Wow.
That I needed to take. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to pay off there's a bunch of things you have to pay during the time. So that was the side hustle I was doing. I had to deal with that.
Review and store all that information in your head.
Yes, but okay, just a background. Before taking up the bar, you practically studied 4 years already. So if you studied enough, it should be okay. It should be a review. I think that's the problem with most students. They study instead of reviewing. During my review, I actually reviewed. So I wasn't.
You already knew these concepts or laws.
Yeah, so it was more of confirmation. So every time you read, it's more of I heard about that, or I read about that,
rather than memorizing.
Yeah. Okay. So during that time, it was just me. I actually attended review classes. Another thing about bar exam review centers is nobody attends.
Oh,
people just go there. They get the notes. They go to the library
or Starbucks.
Or whatever. When I was studying, I actually went to the review classes.
Wow.
I sat through the review and I go home and study again and sleep. So that was the whole thing.
Nice.
But yeah, with law school, it's a different hustle for different people.
Okay.
That worked for me during the time, at least.
All right, thank you for that. We'll take a quick break to discuss a deep dive on what really does Attorney Josef really do now and how he's helping fellow hustlers achieve their dreams. Back after the break. Hey, do you guys like what you're hearing so far? If you do, please don't forget to show us some love and subscribe to Hustleshare on your favorite podcast app. You can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and all the other major podcast apps. Also, if you want to get in touch with us and suggest the next hustlers you want to hear in the show, please do messages on our chatbot on Messenger. Just search Hustleshare or go to m.me/Hustleshare, powered by ChatbotPH. And lastly, if you want to know more about the details and resources we discussed during each episode, please go to our show notes at hustleshare.com. Cool? All right, back to the show. And we're back. We're still with Attorney Josef Acuña, a capital markets lawyer. Did I say that correctly? I always say capital gains for some reason.
Yes, that's correct.
That's why.
Yeah, that's
correct.
correct.
Taxes people. All right, so Attorney Josef, so you've walked us through how you hustled as a law student to law school, all the way through bar exams. What happened after you passed, and how did you get into this career of helping people raise money or funding to what they are? It's just law by default is very generic. How do you specialize?
It was an accident, actually. The first call that I got after passing, well, aside from friends and relatives, was from this law firm. Wow. So what happened was, apparently I submitted an application like a few weeks prior to the results. And then I can only assume that they wrote my name down and waited for the results. And then, yeah, they just called me. And then during the time, I was in need of a job. I mean, I was just waiting for the results.
Now you don't have an excuse.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, I'm gonna be a PhD. Go get a job, Joseph.
So I got the call. I needed a job, so I just took the job. Just to find out later that what actually happens in the real world is after passing the bar, you get a couple of calls. I thought that was the
Literally.
Yeah, so I thought that was the only call I'll get. So I said yes in the first call.
You bit on the first bit.
Yeah, and then a couple of days after, I got around 3 to 5 more calls.
Shit. But you already said yes.
I already said yes. We already agreed on a number, and then I already reported for some kind of an informal interview of some
How
sort.
long did you stay in that first gig?
I'm still in my first gig right now.
Oh, wow.
This is my first gig, yeah.
Wow, holy
I never
gosh.
left, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. How long have you been with your current law firm now?
Since 2012 or 2013, I think.
Wow.
I think you were one of my first clients.
Aww.
In 2013. If we met in 2013,
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
probably one of my first clients. Yeah.
That is amazing to know. I didn't know that because, again, I was a total neophyte, naive.
I can assume that the reason why I was given your accounts because you were the smaller accounts, and I
Wow.
was the youngest in the I was the youngest in the firm.
Oh.
Because now that I'm one of the senior ones, I noticed that the smaller accounts is given to the newbies.
Okay,
So,
okay, got
yeah.
it. So just like a test account.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So how does one specialize? So you said it's your first, and in your firm, you specialize in helping people go IPO and raise funds.
Yes, it's okay.
does
Most
that work? Yeah.
most lawyers actually, they without intending to, they end up specializing in something. In my case, I was almost forced to specialize just because the first firm I worked at specializes in this field.
Okay.
And they specifically hired me for a specific fundraising project.
Got it.
They had
I'm
the
pretty
fund.
sure you can't disclose what it was, but
So
yeah.
there was a big fundraising project that they were doing. They needed additional help. So they needed additional manpower.
Okay.
So, and then after that, I realized that I liked the job without even knowing that such a practice exists. Because when you're in law school, it's just litigation or corporate. Although my practice leans towards corporate,
Yeah.
it's a more specific corporate.
Because most corporate is revolving or either in-house representing a
Yeah.
company or in a law firm. But
Yeah.
what I like about what you guys already do, again, not to toot my own horn here, but just a little bit of a side note as well. My current company, Chatbot PH, wouldn't have been acquired if not for Joseph's recommendation. So I thank him forever for that, because without that, I wouldn't have met Sterling Paper and we wouldn't have done the deal, which now I'm very thankful for. My team is in the best shape ever and whatnot.
Yeah.
But again, going back to how you were able to do that. You help companies raise funds,
Yeah.
right? How does that work? What are the options of a company, regardless of the size? Say, for example, I'm a small company. Usually, I raise seed funding, angel funding. These are the nitty-gritties that people need to know. So if you're a startup founder now or a small-time, as you have an SME, you don't need to bootstrap self-fund it all. How can one tap into these types of resources? Because that's what people need to know.
Okay, so I usually tell this to clients. The first thing that I can't help with is to have a good business.
Okay,
If
that's
you have,
up to us.
That's up to you. I can't really help on that. Help with that. So if you have a good business, more or less, it's gonna be easier for you to look for investors.
Sure.
In my case, from experience, I noticed that those clients of mine that started from, it's usually the founders that investors invest in.
So it's the person and the team.
It's the person and the team, but usually, to be honest, it's the person because they don't really meet the team.
God.
Right? It's usually just the investor that you introduce. It's the investor that pitches, and so for the opportunities, well, even without opening any books, if you have a business, what's the first thing you do? You usually call your mom, call your dad, call your tita, call your nina.
The triple Fs. So the triple Fs, for the sake of everyone who's listening, Triple F's is friends, families, and fools. No, it is. These are the easiest source of funds.
So it usually starts with that. And subsequent to that, you end up going to banks.
Yes. Now you take a debt.
However,
again, going back to our first episode where Atty bridges that gap, because not everybody can be qualified to get a debt like that. And then the other popular option is to do 5-6.
Actually, going back to the triple F as you call it, it doesn't mean that you're always getting money from your friends. What's that? Friends, family, and fools for equity. Sometimes you loan it from your mom. Sometimes you loan it from a rich tita or something.
Yeah.
So it's both ways. When you raise funds, it's always two-way. It's either debt or equity.
Got it.
So it's just a question of where do you borrow or where do you, and how much. I mean, no, where do you borrow? Meaning, do you borrow from angel? Because you call those basically angel investors.
The first ones are angels always.
So,
or devils if they really if you have a bad deal, right?
Yeah. So it depends on who you seek funding from. So for startups, it's usually angel because the reason why you're a startup is because you're not really qualified yet.
Yeah.
So you can't really go to banks.
And the decision-making process of an angel is different than a traditional or institutional VC, because really with an angel, these are high net worth individuals that like I have some cash that I'm sitting on. I'd rather spend it with it also depends on the risk appetite, right? On how they want to invest it, whether they want to go less risky, put it on stocks, on bonds, and let it sit and make 8% per annum, or you go very risky, put it in a startup, but you can go 10x in X amount of years.
That's why I said earlier that they usually invest in people, because if the person is interesting enough, I mean, if you ask me, I'd rather put my money in bonds or in in more conservative avenues. But if you like an individual, you have enough cash, you might as well invest in that person, because no matter how good the concept is, no matter how good the business is, if the guy's an asshole, he's an asshole. I mean,
but I've seen other assholes get funded. But there's always a healthy middle, right? A good asshole that's great in business, or a nice guy who's a stuff.
No, but if you're an investor, do you want to do calls with that person? I mean, can you just imagine your board meetings with that asshole?
Oh, shoot.
You won't even trust that guy. I mean,
I totally get it. Now, Joseph, what I want to know, based on your experience, right? What's the best option, I guess, for a startup? Because again, you said debt or equity, right? When you're a small-time entrepreneur, right? Do you really have, and you look at the end goal, is IPO when you're going public the only thing? Because it's, how many tech companies have got IPO? SurePass. I don't know anyone else, right? SurePass has always been there, but what are the other options? Is there bonds or what?
Okay, just a caveat. I'm not really a financial person. Okay. I'm not a capital markets analyst, and so strictly to law. But from experience, I noticed that, I mean, of course, when you talk about structures, you can do bonds, but it really depends on, number one, the founder.
Okay.
I mean, what type of funding does he need? Because even if you want to go public, you might not be qualified. Even if you want to raise X amount of money, maybe your cash flow isn't enough. Or maybe if you want to... Okay, the problem with debt is you need to pay for it. If you don't have enough cash flow, you'll end up just shooting your own foot.
True.
So those are the considerations. That's why there's no fixed structure that you can do for any founder.
Got it.
So, like, for example, in your case, you needed the cash flow. You needed funding at that time, so you needed to be acquired.
Yep.
Versus if you put up more debt, you might not have enough, runway with that debt in mind.
Right.
Yeah, you'll end up, dying because of that quick fundraising you'll do.
Okay. Now, my last question before we go to another break. You've seen a lot of companies come and go. You've helped them incorporate all the way to the worst part, which is they have to liquidate. What are the characteristics of two things I want to ask of success? What do you see? What do you see are the characteristics of a successful company, and what are the characteristics of a company doomed to fail?
Okay. Okay. Maybe we should start with number one. As I said earlier, there should be a good business.
Okay.
If you have a good business, more or less you'd survive, even without fundraising. I mean, a lot of companies survived using the cash flow to expand. And of course, the founders need to be resilient. I mean, that's one of the things that, I mean, when you start a business, you'd have a lot of issues: bad partners, bad employees. You know,
I know this shit.
Yeah, I have a client now whose partner is suing her for estafa and things like that. So you'll end up with a lot of bumps in the road, and you have to be resilient.
And it's worse than marriage, because in marriage you can always spread up, or at least in the Philippine setting you can annul.
Yeah.
In a corporation, you're stuck there forever until you buy them up.
Yeah. So the thing for successful ones, most of them have a good idea.
Okay.
And then, as I said earlier, good idea is not really enough. So most of them have good founders.
Okay.
Okay, that's the poggy stories.
Okay. What about the hell stories?
No. I mean, there's another side to it.
Okay.
A lot of successful companies are successful because they have capital.
Of course.
So a lot of companies, they don't really have the smartest people behind it. They don't have the nicest concept, but they have cash.
They're able to play the game.
So they're able to play. Yeah, you have enough runway to outlast the rest of them.
And make a couple mistakes along the way and still pivot and
you
figure
can
it out.
actually you can afford to make mistakes. That's the problem with the other side of the coin, wherein you can't afford to make too much mistakes because you're gonna die. So I think that's, if you ask me, that's the trick there. You need to survive as much as possible before you run out. Yes. So yeah.
Okay, just going back, because I've been through both sides, the wins and the losses. And sometimes there's more value. I mean, I hate to say it like this, but because it's never fun, it's the most gut-wrenching experience I've ever been through. Probably the only thing that is worse in terms of feeling is death, when you're dealing with death. But nothing is more painful than closing a business that you've spent time and effort, blood and sweat and tears, any other liquid in between. Nothing's more gut-wrenching than that. Other than, having bad partners, what are the characteristics that, maybe other hustlers out there should, be cautious of?
Watch out for. Yeah. To be honest, sometimes...
Is it cap table? Cap table, like giving too much equity if you're the main guy.
Okay, with the cap table, I can't really say that that's an issue, because at the end of the day, it's your requirement. It's, you give out capital not because you want to, but because you have to, most of the time at least.
Of course.
So you sell shares because you need the money. So it's a bullet you have to bite.
True.
For those who fail, that most of my clients that eventually end up failing, what I notice is they end up with bad timing. Timing is a key. I mean, that's why I mean, as much as you have to work hard, you have to pray that everything works out for you. Because no matter how hard you work, if the timing is bad, I mean, can you just imagine if you start chatbot like 10 years ago?
Good luck.
It's very bad timing.
Yeah.
I mean, so at the end of the day, it's a bit of luck as well.
It's very true, because in the second episode, the episode before this one, Iba said the same thing. Timing is everything.
Yeah.
So, you're only a victim of your own game too. But again, say timing out of the thing. Would you say that, so, like I said, going back to the cap table reference that I said, right? If you give up too much equity, and there's a lot of predatory deals out there, again, depending on the bullet you have to bite. Have you seen scenarios where founders, jumped the gun too early, gave up too much for too soon, and then down the road they couldn't make the decision that they need to make?
Yes, a lot of people actually end up doing that. If you ask me, The problem is not really on that side of the business.
Okay.
The problem, I think, and especially with startups, I noticed this with startups, they concentrate too much on the fundraising part of the business. Although, of course, you need funding, but sometimes you spend too much time fundraising, you end up taking for granted the business side of
and then you get enamored that, hey, I miss X amount of $1 million, and then you realize, hey, I don't have a sustainable business model.
Yeah, and you know, at the end of the day, a sari-sari store is earning more than you. I mean, can you just imagine that?
Yeah.
The sari-sari store is just buying and selling, you know, candies and stuff, and they're earning more than you. Because I think they concentrate on the business, and that's one thing that maybe businessmen, not just startups, businessmen should take a look at. They have to concentrate on what's the business versus, you know, the cool side of it, that, you know, pitches and, you know, preparing decks and marketing and things like that.
Being on the news. Whatever.
Yeah. So if you have a good business, if you concentrate to improve your business, I mean, I think you'll end up doing okay.
All right. Thank you very much for that. We'll do another quick break. And then after this, we're going to be doing a deep dive more on Attorney Josef's hustle and what it takes to be a good lawyer and what it takes to be on his side of the coin. More of that after the break.
Effective automation is the best way for businesses to stay competitive. And having a chatbot for your business lets you easily automate and optimize sales, marketing, and customer service in the digital age. Chatbot PH will build, train, maintain, and market your chatbot across all messaging platforms. Our team uses the latest AI technologies to enable you to better serve customers 24/7, 365. Set a meeting with us today. Message us now at m.me/chatbotph.
And we're back for the last part of this episode. We're still with Attorney Josef Acuña. On this part, we're gonna do a deep dive now on how he does his hustle and what it takes to be a capital markets lawyer. I mean, just by a lawyer by default, because it's a totally different ballgame. And correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, law, again, this is very naive and this is very subjective based on my point of view. This is not a smart opinion or not point of view, but law is basically upholding the very truth, because there's always three sides of the coin, right? One side, the other side, and the truth. Right? You're defending one side. So in order to be a good lawyer, what does one have to be able to provide and stick by what you are now? Because you've gone a long way, right? And what are the things that you never let go and what you live by default?
Okay, in my kind of practice, I think that's one of the reasons also why I'm comfortable with the capital markets practice or with the corporate practice, because there's no oppositions in my line of work. Usually we do deals. So in most of my situations, that I am on one side of the deal and then there's another lawyer on the other side of the deal, and our roles are usually to just make sure that everything is in order, that that your client is protected, that nobody takes advantage of whoever.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you have to take advantage of the other side, because that's why sometimes we're called transaction lawyers.
Okay.
You make sure that the transaction runs smoothly as possible.
As smoothly in their favor, or does it also have to be fair for the other side? Because sometimes that's what it is. As businessmen, sometimes you can't help the fact that you gotta maximize whatever you can, even if it's lopsided and whatnot. So how do you balance that out?
In my line of work, we rely a lot on relationships.
Okay.
So, I need to start with that, because personally, I don't, as much as possible, try to ruin relationships even on the opposing side, because it's a small industry for my practice.
Yeah.
So my opposing party today might be my client tomorrow.
Yeah.
So as much as possible, we don't try to take advantage.
Don't burn bridges.
Yeah, not just burn bridges, but as much as possible, try not to be a dick about it. I mean, there are a lot of, especially with litigation, because it's a very different ball game with litigation.
Yep.
They have to be uber aggressive. They have to really protect their clients.
Yeah.
In my line of work, not really. As long as
you're not in the line of fire.
Yeah, as long as you protect your client, you're good.
Okay.
So in my line of work, relationship actually matters. One of the disadvantages I have is that I grew up in the province, so I don't have that much network in Manila when I got to Manila. So I'm trying to build as much network as I can today. And
how do you hustle for that? Now, so you said you came from zero.
Yeah.
But now you know all these people, and without you, I wouldn't be here either, and without your help. How did you hustle to that? I mean, of course, it's given that it's with your work, but I'm pretty sure you went over and above to build that network.
Yeah. Okay, again, I premise this by saying that, okay, the presumption is most lawyers work hard. The presumption is most lawyers know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And with everything equal, I think what I do on top of it is, you mean just building relationships. So, for example, I think you're a perfect example of that, in that I'm not really responsible in raising funds for you.
Yeah, but you opened my door.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is that that's actually beyond what I'm paid to do.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to drop the paperwork. I'm supposed to tell you about the structure, but I'm not supposed to start looking for investors for you.
True.
So those are the small things that, we do, or I do at least, to build relationships. I mean, imagine we met 2013. You were starting your own business. I was starting my practice, and who would have thought we'd be here? So it's about relationships, I think. It's about treating people at least with some form of respect. I mean, if you respect people, it's easy to, So.
Correct. Now, Joseph, what are the hacks in order for a lawyer in this line of field to succeed? Because again, this is all talking about technicalities. One false move can mean a lot of money down the drain. So what are your hacks to make sure that you're always on top of your game, to make sure that you're doing the game right and you're executing top level?
Well, hacks. Of course, you need to do a lot of readings.
Yep.
That's a given. And I don't know if a lot of lawyers do this, but I really rely a lot on apps.
Apps, okay.
I rely.
Oh, yeah. By the way, Joseph is married, so if you see him on Tinder, please screenshot it and send it to his wife.
So, yeah, I heavily, my day relies a lot on apps. So, for example, I don't know. So for me, my basic hack is I have data.
Okay.
That's very basic for me. I panic when I go to places where I don't have data or internet connection.
You need to be connected to the world.
I need to be connected.
So what do you do with these apps? What type of apps are you talking about?
So for example, I rely heavily on Evernote.
Okay.
Depending on the client, with Filipinos, we rely a lot on Viber.
Yeah.
I have foreign clients who rely a lot on WhatsApp.
Yep.
And then the younger ones, the other one.
Okay.
No.
Messenger.
Slack.
Slack, of course.
The younger ones, I don't know why, but they...
No, Slack, it's a great collaborator. It's in-house. I can't run my team without Slack.
Yeah.
Slack is where it's the lifeblood of the team. It's your own network. It's integrated with everything.
Yeah, it's easy to pass around documents and things like that.
And stay within a certain topic.
Yeah. And I use Asana heavily also.
Okay. So for your to-dos.
Yeah, for the to-dos. And I treat clients as a project.
Okay.
So it's easy to just to branch out whatever you have to do with Asana.
Nice. That's your tech. That's us creeping into you.
Yeah. And of course, Microsoft. As I was just telling you earlier, I also have a bunch of cloud-based stuff. Yeah. So.
Just curious, because not all clients are young like us, or at least be tech savvy. How do you deal with clients who are on the traditional side, who, those clients who still print email or don't read emails or like things in traditional ways.
Yeah, you adapt to it. You adapt to it. So, for example, I have clients that I have to call after emailing. I have clients who actually don't even hold their own phone. So after emailing them, you have to call their secretary to tell them to print what you emailed. To be honest, even I myself, I have to print things out.
Oh.
I don't really like reading things. Especially long documents. I don't like reading it in my phone or in my laptop. So what I usually do is I print it out. I do notes on it. And then I have to use Word or whatever afterwards.
Nice.
So
now, okay. How does one lawyer or in your field try to get by the obstacles? What are the common obstacles that you usually get? Because I'm pretty sure you need a ton of patience in this line of field. You can't be an impatient guy like, this guy's an idiot and whatnot. Do you literally prepare yourself emotionally because you can't drag that? Because technically, majority of the time, we're consulting you with our problems.
yeah.
How, do you have a rule and like, I'm not supposed to bring this shit home and what?
Okay. I think one of the positive things about being a lawyer is that clients actually treat you as consultants.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit nicer to you. It's a lot lighter to deal with clients versus I can just imagine with other types of of
most
work.
of the time we call because there's some trouble.
There's some trouble. Yeah.
I can't remember how many times I'm like, Joseph, what do I do with this? Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it depends on the personality as well. I think I'm gifted with that. I can just absorb things like that. Of course, it gets draining at some times, but with my line of work, it's not. It's just a deadline that we're trying to catch versus I can just imagine surgeons having a different type of problem. So, I guess it's a matter of perspective. So, if you think about it that way, that my shit is still easier than whatever they're going through. If I miss a dot, I'm good. If they miss a dot, somebody could die. So
wow, that's great. Just a couple more questions. Just looking back at motivation, because I'm pretty sure at some point it gets boring. It gets old. Anything that has repetitive and whatnot, especially you're dealing with laws and whatnot, right? What is your why? What keeps you going on a day-to-day basis?
To be honest, I haven't really thought about it that much. I don't think of it prior to whatever project I do. But every once in a while, you do a project, you do a fundraising, and then you realize that it actually matters what you do. Okay. Like I like a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, I raised fund for a green development company.
Okay.
And it was one of the smaller fundraising we did. Yeah. I think it's relatively small.
Define small, because you're talking about when you say
around 220 million. But
220 million, wait, pesos, dollars?
Pesos. No, but prior to that, we were raising. That was the first SME. It's an
SME 220 million.
It's classified as an SME market. Yes.
220 million.
220 million.
So just again, just to put things into perspective. Joseph raises billion sometimes. Joseph.
So when we were able to IPO that company, I somehow realized.
IPO.
Yeah, we did IPO.
Wow.
For IPO perspective, it's relatively small.
But still, that's a whole league of its own.
Yes, but no, the point is that prior to doing a project, you don't really think about what the why is. But after doing a project, every once in a while you feel good that, I actually helped this person. Remember earlier I was telling you that, running a business is about, surviving more or trying to outlive the problems that you face as a business.
Yep.
So, whenever we raise enough cash for them, that's a good feeling that, you help them survive to live another day or to live another year.
And achieve their dreams.
Yeah, it may not be your dream, but at the very least, you're helping people do their dream. And if their dream is good for the environment or good for the country or whatever, I mean, it has a better, it leaves a better taste in your mouth. You sleep better. Yeah, you sleep better. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. Lastly, just a couple, just lighter topics at least. There's a new law now, and this is very technical as a lawyer, that very soon here in the Philippines, I mean, it's been passed, right? That people can now incorporate as a sole director. Or
sole incorporator, yeah, sole director. Yeah.
How big is that for companies or first-time entrepreneurs or whatever? How will that change the game?
To be honest, I think it's just gonna be the same. Maybe you have more access to it. But in the Philippines, it's relatively easy to set up a company even when you were required to do 5, because you always had 2, 3 siblings and your parents. I mean, it's unlike other countries. I think that's not really a big problem here. Yeah. I think the problem here more of is on the regulatory side of it, on the expense of it, how much. Yeah. I mean, it's quite expensive. You set up a company, you have to quarterly pay something with a BIR or monthly file something, and either you learn how to do it or you pay an accountant to do it. So there are fixed costs that you have to do when running a business, and I think the way it's set up is it's set up a little bit too complicated for you to do it on your own.
Yeah.
Unlike in other places when you can actually, it's just online, you can do it on your own.
Singapore. You know this.
Singapore.
For me, I've experienced having a corporation here at my first startup. And then second, like, nope, I'm not going through that pain again, at least immediately. And being incorporated in Singapore, where you can literally incorporate overnight. Yeah. That's crazy. Everything seamless. But again, this is a step in the right direction. This whole thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think it becomes more accessible just because you have options. But as regards it being a game changer, I really don't see it that way.
Okay.
Just more accessible. Yeah.
All right. Last question. What are your tips if someone wants to pursue this type of career path, to be in business law per se?
Yeah.
What if you were talking to your younger self? What are the things that we would have said? Like, all right, don't talk to Ron. It's crazy, right?
Well, number one, I think I should have learned how to write better.
Write better.
Yeah, it's something that I took for granted growing up. And number two, working the Excel sheet.
Excel.
Yes, I thought being a lawyer would help me to run away from whatever number that I have to crunch. But being a corporate lawyer, you'd have to learn how to work with the Excel sheet. And I think as a businessman also, it's a tool that everybody needs to figure out how to.
You don't have to get the Pythagorean theorem.
But you have to know how to, it's
know your numbers.
Yeah, because I think most of us studied Word more than we studied Excel.
Yeah.
Just because when we were younger, it was more practical when doing reports and things like that. Like, you know how to control A, control B, and things like that, but you don't know how to do summation and things like that in the Excel sheet. Which, if you think about it, is actually it should be on the same level.
It's a hard skill.
Yeah.
That people should have. You shouldn't go out there in the real world
without
Excel skills. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
It's like coding now. Like, you need, somehow, some way, you need to learn how to code.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna come into a opportunity where you need to unless you want to do manual fucking calculator shit or an abacus. Right? Then go ahead. What else?
Well, I should have studied harder.
But you can always correct those mistakes and whatnot.
Yeah, you can always try to work harder than, you can try to always work harder.
Again, thank you very much, Attorney Josef, for dropping by the Hustleshare podcast. I hope you had fun.
Yeah, I had fun. Thank you as well.
You do not sound like you had fun.
Like, yeah, I had fun.
Now, thank you very much, and see you guys in the next episode. Peace.